Hi everybody, welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. We have talked in this show before about what does it mean to be an administrator at higher education. What does it mean to direct and coordinate educational programs to benefit students. But what does it mean to be the provost of a university? What does it imply? How does that job look like, the day by day? Today we have the honor to have with us Dr. Stephen Berberich, who is the provost of the University of Houston Clear Lake, and he's going to be telling us in simple terms what does it mean to be a provost. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Why don't we start by letting you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of letting them know how do you get to where you are in your career.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to spending some time with you here today.
Absolutely.
I've been the provost at University of Houston Clear Lake since July of 18. To be honest with you, I've been in higher ed for now 26 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm an unusual person from a couple of perspectives. First of all, I knew as a high school student that I wanted to be involved in science and DNA.
Okay.
And as a first generation college student, that meant I didn't have parents who'd experienced the college environment, but
Okay.
they had strong work ethics.
Okay.
And they knew that their three children, they wanted them all to have a college degree.
Okay.
So when I started my journey to get to being able to do what my passion was and was working with DNA, I look back and I see the mentors from
Okay.
high school teachers to people at the college, faculty and staff who helped me find the path forward.
Okay.
And that path was to become a faculty member.
Okay.
So I started in higher ed as a faculty member, worked up through the ranks, started my own research laboratory, very passionate about my career in working with students, both in the classroom, in the laboratory, in providing service. But I uncovered a second passion. And I did it about midway in my career.
Okay.
It was when I set up the opportunity to create a center for genomics research to help students and other faculty do molecular things, work with DNA. And when I created that center, I recognized that I get a lot of passion out of helping others. And that sort of second passion led me down the administrative track, initially as a department chair, and then in the provost office as an associate provost. And so I realized that I was following a new path, a path different than the initial one back as a high school student, but one that I was equally passionate about, and that is to help institutions of higher ed be more successful. So as I left the classroom, I was really putting my efforts to helping the faculty and the staff and the students be successful at an institution. And so in the provost office right now, as we're going to talk more about that job, you see that you have an opportunity to have a large impact. And I'm so excited to be in this position. I'm so excited because it aligns with my passion to help others that I discovered as I described to you. Creating a center for others allowed me to realize that there's a lot we can do here in higher ed to help the mission of an institution.
And that is fantastic. And we have a lot of students and even current pre-K through 12 administrators who may be looking at us right now, superintendents and high school principals and principals in general. And even students that they may be thinking, okay, I want to be a faculty member and eventually I may want to become an administrator. So in simple terms, for people who may be looking at us right now, what can you tell us about the role of the provost at the university level? What does that imply?
Yeah, I mean, you can define it quite straightforward. I mean, the provost is the chief academic officer of an institution, which means that individual is responsible for all of the academic affairs of an institution. However, I have to point out that definition is sort of evolving. In the last 5 or 10 years, you see provosts that are not just focused on the internal workings of an institution, but play an important role looking outside an institution.
Okay.
I'm going to describe the job because I've often been asked the question. So I'm going to take a description given by a gentleman by the name of Harry Carter, who was provost of Georgia Southern University.
Okay.
And Harry tells this story. He says he was driving down a highway in Georgia, and he saw this large sign and a billboard, and it was for a septic company.
Okay.
And what the septic company said was, "We are number one in the number two business." And Harry said, and would often say, that the provost job is in many ways feeling like you're number one in the number two business. And so you can chuckle about it, but I point it out because I think Harry's right that it's a job that has some challenges, and
Exactly.
it requires someone who can look at those challenges and find opportunities, I believe. And so, taking this next step, I spent 5 years in a provost office working for 2 provosts. I really got to see that there's some great opportunities to make things happen, and there are challenges that face institutions.
So for our students or who are currently taking higher ed specialization or even other professionals, if you compare the presidency with the provost, what are the main differences that you can point out?
Sure.
It's important.
Well, I think again, presidents tend to be more externally focused to the
Okay.
campus, right? And often they're working with legislators or they're working with the community. But I would say to you, the president sets the strategic direction of the institution, and working with a provost and a vice president for academics and finance, there's your core team that sort of works.
The executors
of the mission, led by the things that come up from the units and the focus.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Now, in terms of your daily job, what does that look like? Let's say a regular day in your life.
Sure.
As
So
a pro.
first thing I got to tell you is no 2 days are alike in the provost office, because you can look at your calendar and you can say, well, I've got this set and that set, but a provost office, things happen on a daily basis, and since you're functioning to make sure the internal workings of the institution are moving forward, you never know. When an issue arises, it's likely going to come to the provost office or maybe through the president, but you're going to be engaged in
Because you're not only in charge of the academic, but you also, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you coordinate also the operational side of the university in what way? I mean, do they report to you as well in terms of, if an issue arises, let's say a safety issue or something with the facilities, do they have to go to you?
So you're describing really what the vice president for admin and finance has.
Okay,
so
okay.
all those are coming up. But for example, we have units like research, and we
Okay.
have the Student Success Center,
Okay.
and we have the library and
Okay.
UCT. Those units report to
They
me.
report
So
to you, too.
some do. So, but those units tend to be more service focused for the academic side.
Gotcha, okay.
But whether it be an emergency, I'm going to be on that senior leadership communication. So no 2 days are alike, and I think
Okay.
it's important to see that I think the provost day, by and large, involves a lot of meetings, because you've got to engage with different people. So I tend to get in here a little before the start of the business. I'm usually in by 7:30, so I can get a little work done before the meetings start to happen.
Okay.
And then, you're going through those meetings, you're getting new things that have to get accomplished, you're making sure that work gets done. And the other thing that I think most people recognize is it's not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job. It really is. I think you have to be passionate and understand there's a little bit of a 24/7 nature of this. But I'm going to tell you that as a faculty member, as an assistant professor, I was equally passionate. I was 24/7 when I was teaching my classes, getting my lab started. So it's never been something that I've never thought of it as an 8 to 5 job. But it's also important when you're in these sort of positions that when you recognize you're constantly needing to be able to respond, that it's important to still have a work-life balance, and I'm very good at that. And I think people who are at this level need to know how to balance that work. And I have some specific things that I do. My wife and I set some things that happen in the future. We're going to take time off here or there, certain times of the day where I'm going to recalibrate. You have to in order to be successful.
In order to be able to balance.
Absolutely.
Now, when we look at the big picture, from a university perspective, one of the biggest challenges that higher ed is facing is reaching out to economically disadvantaged students, because you and I know that there's a big tendency within the past years with career and technology professions, and where they could provide a pretty decent income for students graduating with a GED and trying to probably work in a plant or directly in a technological company, but without necessarily a higher ed degree. And so, you being in charge of the entire academics in the university, having to balance your time within the different colleges, and what is your perspective? What is your view in terms of reaching out to and serving economically disadvantaged students?
I think it's an excellent question. Yeah. First of all, I think the data is quite clear that getting a degree, a higher ed degree, is a path forward. It's a way that allows students those that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, a way to move forward, to be on solid financial ground. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons I applied for UHCL is because this is an institution that is mission driven around being student centered and helping those students be successful. Not all higher ed institutions are that way, but where I came from, in my previous institution, and where I find myself now, are places where I can see that we are there to commit to helping those students be successful. And I've got to say, one of the real strengths of UHCL is I've looked around at the faculty and the staff, and I see the similar passion that I have about helping those students be successful. And so I'm excited to be here. I think that is one of the important aspects that we provide, UHCL, to our community. We're serving these students. We're understanding that we have to not just give them the education piece, but make sure we create an environment. This goes beyond the academic affairs. It includes the student affairs life.
Well, especially those first generation students.
Absolutely. We have to connect and have the touches and the opportunities so that when those students come here, we do the things we need to help them stay here and be successful. It's not just enrolling students, it's actually retaining them and graduating them, getting them in, through, and then beyond, right? What they can do once they have that degree. So you've hit a passion for me in terms of why an institution like this, I think, has such an important role that it plays in educating students today.
Well, and I think you hit a really important point, especially because one of the things that I try to tell my students and my colleagues in the field and administration is obtaining a higher ed degree, obtaining a career title is not only for direct economic satisfaction, but also it's intellectual satisfaction. And that's, I think, we as an institution, I don't know if you agree with that, but I think we can do a better job selling that is long-term happiness. It's not only short-term satisfaction in terms of financial, but also having that intellectual satisfaction may help you be a better individual for society in the long term.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I mean, I think back to the people who helped me along the way. I knew what I wanted to do, but then figuring out the path to achieve my dream. That's really what we're about here, right? We're helping them. And so when I look at students that come in the door who apply into a program, I think we need to start from day one to connect the career, the end point, where they think they're going to go. Make sure that they understand what those opportunities are so that they're on the path that they need to be. Because sometimes students come in and they think they want to be this kind of engineer or in this particular field of education. We need to work quickly. This is when I say more touches to students. We need to make sure we reach those students early and let them know where their dream will go with the degree that they're on, so that we get them on the path and that they're in the area that they want.
That is fantastic. Now, in terms of your job, what are for our viewers right now that may be looking at us right now, what are the most challenging things of your job that you can describe? Okay, these are the things that are, not necessarily the ones that you don't like the most, but they're really challenging for you.
Yeah, there are a variety. I think the common challenge in higher ed for most provosts is that there's never a sufficient amount of resources to do all the great things that faculty and staff want to do. And I think when I look at an institution like this, where we've just done downward expansion and we're trying to meet those students, there's a lot of great things that we need to put in place, but there's always financial challenges. So that requires that you have to go through processes where you take all those great ideas and you figure out what can we do and what should we be doing at this time. I think that's the big challenge. The other challenge is, as you come in as a new team, and that's what we're seeing at UHCL, there have been some challenges at the institution, and I've been spending time learning from people who've been here longer than I. What are some of those challenges? I respect that. But what I'm also, I think myself and the other leaders that have come on board, we're really trying to get everyone to look forward and to begin to think, what can we do? Because the past is the past. We're always going to be limited in resources, but as long as we're strategic in how we utilize those resources and we give the ability of people to propose their ideas and understand that we can't do every idea that we come up with, that we'll get the best and we'll move forward. And I think, I look at the timing, and as we're beginning to think about doing strategic planning at this institution, we're just properly aligned to take that financial challenge that was in the past and turn it around with the growth that we're seeing in enrollment and the focus we have on retain and graduate to really move the institution forward in a real positive way.
Well, and I have to give you props for putting a lot of alliances with private, companies and school districts out there to help their students to find jobs and move their career. And it is like you said, it's hard, breaking that mentality when you're a new leader in a organization. That okay, this is the way we have been doing things. And that's the rationale. Changing that is always difficult. What about one topic that I always ask higher ed administrators is how do you deal with tenure faculty? Because in other organizations, private industry, or even pre-K through 12, you don't have that factor. Mm-hmm. And from the management perspective to further policies. Research shows that could be a challenge. So what is your take on, how to further policy when having tenure faculty and getting them on board to
Well, so as we understand, the tenure process is recognition of a faculty member's commitment in the areas of scholarship, teaching, and service over that probationary period. So that tenure is granted after an individual has demonstrated that they have met the criteria or the guidelines set for the promotion and tenure. And so it's a recognition. And I think having policies and procedures in place that are clear and transparent about what it takes to get that tenure and promotion, I think is key. But once you're tenured as an associate professor, there's the ability to be promoted to full professor, but there's also the recognition that it's not the end of the road. It's really, you've achieved that. The university has now made a commitment to you to retain here a position at the institution. And we as an institution and the faculty member have equal responsibility to continue to make sure we're putting things in place for that faculty member to continue to develop. And that faculty member has an additional responsibility to be committed to the institution. So I don't see tenure as a concern as long as you've created the right culture. And what I mean by that is, think a lot about faculty throughout their career, whether they be lecturers or instructors or on this tenure track of assistant, associate, or professor. And it's important that institutions put in place support metrics. Faculty development, a Center for Faculty Development is one example, ways to help faculty improve in their teaching, an Office of Research and Sponsored Programs that's supporting those that are engaged in research activities, seeking external funds, and then all the different work that we're doing, strategic partnerships, helping faculty connect with the community. We as an institution have to put those all in place and then expect that faculty at the various stages make use of that and move forward. I really want to see tenured faculty. Think of myself, I didn't recognize I had this second passion in administration until I was already tenured, and I was given an opportunity to engage more effort and service to the university. That led me to understand I had a passion to help the university. I see in the future for UHCL opportunities for faculty, whether they be tenured or non-tenured track, and staff in general, to really get to know the institution and have a culture where people can move from within up within the system. So, there are responsibilities with moving up the ladder, and I believe the faculty here are committed to that. I see it day in and day out, the amount of effort that faculty put in the classes that they're teaching and in their engagement with their students. It is quite impressive.
You hit a really good point, culture. Now, what about the most fun part of your job? What are the things that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I think the most fun part is whenever I can see individual people or groups of people be successful in moving something forward. So I got to tell you, I get really excited when it's commencement, because now you're watching students, right, who've reached that goal, getting their degree, and so that's got to be one of my top 10 in terms of watching them go across. I had the opportunity in our commencement here in the winter, to shake hands with every student who walked across. I was jazzed for that. I mean, that kept me on a high for a week. So I really enjoy seeing that. I enjoy seeing individuals be able to move things forward. On a personal level, I just enjoy when I can help anyone be successful. That could be through a challenging situation or achieve that next goal, right? And to be honest with you, I don't have to be recognized for that. I just knowing that directly or indirectly, I've helped someone move forward and achieve their goal, whether it be a student, a staff, or faculty. I get a lot of personal enjoyment out of that. That's what drives me. That allows me to deal with all the challenging things, and so that's one of the things that makes this job really fun.
That is fantastic. Now, looking at to kind of finalize, looking at the big picture of higher ed, in terms of what we have right now in the nation and the world, versus the challenges and the opportunities that we may see in the future. How do you see higher ed within the next 10 years with the transformation and where it's going?
Well, I think higher ed is still going to be critical in the economy. I believe higher ed is the place where innovation occurs. So I see institutions of higher ed are still going to need to be innovating around how are we going to continue to teach the next generation of students. We are the places where knowledge is created. And so we're still going to be locations where new knowledge is created. And I think institutions of higher ed are critical in the communities that they serve. And you can define community locally, statewide, or nationally based on the institution.
Or even virtually.
Yes, absolutely, internationally. Well said. So I think it's the goal of institutions to look at those three areas and say, where's our strength? I mean, we want to be doing all three things, but what are we known for? What are we distinctive in? How are we going to make the difference? And so to bring that full circle for UHCL, I think we're at a perfect point. We're at the point where we're going to be doing our next strategic planning process, and we're going to have an opportunity for the next 5 years to chart out where do we see those areas of innovation, of teaching and scholarship and service, and how are we connected with the community, like you said, which is both local all the way to international. And so
that is fantastic. Well, I want to thank you one more time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed this. I appreciate you doing this. I think this is great. I will tell you too that this ability to share a little bit about the provost office sort of ties in with something that I hope to do at UHCL, which is really to create an opportunity for staff and faculty to learn more about the workings of an institution.
Absolutely.
And so one of the future goals I want to see is how do we tell people more about what it is to be a president or a provost? How do we help people understand the culture of a higher ed institution like UHCL, and do it with the members, the employees right here across campus?
Oh yeah, we have a lot lot of valuable people.
I think we do.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you one more time, Dr. Berberich, for being with us.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed
Absolutely. It. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
watching us. And remember that we have this interview and many others in Antonio Corrales. Let's talk about education with Antonio Corrales. Please help somebody today, and see you next time.
Take care.